The night was dark, a blanket of fog hung heavy in the air, obscuring the world beyond the headlights. A lone taxi sliced through the gloom, its yellow glow a beacon in the oppressive darkness. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic whir of the engine and the soft patter of rain on the windshield. It was the kind of night that sent shivers down your spine, a night where anything could happen. This was Mayfield, a town where time seemed to stand still. Nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering willows, it was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors and secrets stayed buried deep. But beneath the tranquil facade, a darkness lurked. A mystery was about to unfold, one that would shatter the town's peaceful veneer and expose the secrets lurking beneath. Mayfield had seen its share of tragedies, but none so chilling as the case of the Vanishing Passenger. It began on a night like any other, a night that promised nothing more than the usual routine. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The tranquility of the evening was about to be shattered, leaving an indelible mark on the town's history. The air grew heavy with anticipation, the silence pregnant with unspoken dread. Something was amiss in Mayfield. The very air seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, a premonition of the unsettling events about to unfold. The town held its breath, unaware of the chilling tale that was about to be told. Thomas Grant, a seasoned taxi driver with a weathered face and a heart of gold, was no stranger to Mayfield's quiet nights. He had spent countless hours navigating its deserted streets, his cab a familiar sight in the town's tapestry of normalcy. But tonight was different. Tonight, Thomas would become an unwitting player in a mystery that would test his courage and his sanity. As the clock ticked past midnight, Thomas found himself yearning for the comfort of his warm bed. Little did he know that his shift was far from over, and the night held a chilling encounter that would change his life forever. The taxi's radio crackled with static, the only sound breaking the heavy silence that had settled over the town. It was as if Mayfield itself was holding its breath, bracing for the storm that was about to break.
You could say that. Sure, hop in. It's a bit late for a trip out there, isn't it? Can you take me to the old mill on the outskirts of town? Intrigued, Thomas pulled over to the curb. The headlights revealed a young man with piercing eyes. He wore a long, dark coat. A shiver ran down Thomas's spine. The headlights cut through the thick fog. A figure emerged from the swirling mist. A lone passenger stood at the edge of the road. "14 Willow Lane, it's not far."
The passenger slid into the back seat, the scent of rain and something vaguely familiar yet unsettling filling the confined space. He muttered an address, his voice a low rumble that barely registered above the hum of the engine.
14 Willow Lane.
Thomas nodded, his unease growing with each passing moment. He had lived in Mayfield his entire life, knew its streets like the back of his hand, yet the address meant nothing to him. It was an address shrouded in mystery, existing somewhere in the fringes of his memory but refusing to fully materialize. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, melting back into the fog-choked night, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He stole glances at his passenger in the rearview mirror, each glimpse amplifying his unease. The young man sat unnaturally still, his gaze fixed on something beyond the rain-streaked windows, his thoughts a labyrinth that Thomas couldn't hope to navigate. The silence in the taxi was heavy, punctuated only by the rhythmic click of the turn signal and the soft murmur of the radio. Thomas tried to engage his passenger in conversation, to pierce the veil of mystery that surrounded him, but his attempts were met with curt replies and an unnerving silence that spoke volumes. The passenger seemed content to exist in his own world, a world shrouded in shadows and whispers, a world that Thomas couldn't begin to comprehend. S1. Media Group, passenger sitting in backseat of taxi at night, taxi driver looking back at silent passenger, shadowy figure in backseat of car at stock, at distribute _equally. Thomas cleared his throat, his voice a bit too loud in the confined space as if trying to break free from the suffocating silence.
"So you new in town?"
he asked, his tone a tad too cheerful. a desperate attempt to inject some normalcy into the increasingly strange ride. The passenger didn't turn, his gaze remaining fixed on the passing scenery, or perhaps the lack thereof.
No, not new.
With that cryptic response, the passenger retreated back into his silence, leaving Thomas to grapple with the weight of his unspoken words. The driver tried to decipher the meaning behind the passenger's enigmatic statement, his mind racing with unsettling possibilities. Who was this man shrouded in mystery and secrets, and what was he doing in Mayfield on a night like this? Section 514 Willow Lane, a house with a troubled past.
The taxi lumbered down a narrow lane, the headlights illuminating a weathered sign that read Willow Lane.
Thomas's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white as he strained to see through the swirling fog. The houses on this street were old, their paint peeling, their windows like vacant eyes staring out into the night. And then he saw it. 14 Willow Lane.
The house stood at the end of the lane, shrouded in darkness and an almost palpable aura of despair. Its once grand facade was now crumbling, the windows boarded up, the yard overgrown with weeds. It was a house that had witnessed too many sorrows, a house that held onto its secrets with an iron grip.
Thomas shuddered, a cold dread seeping into his bones. This was no ordinary fare. This was a journey into the heart of darkness. Section 1, Arrival at 14 Willow Lane. A sense of unease lingers.
The taxi shuddered to a stop in front of the dilapidated house, its headlights casting long, dancing shadows on the overgrown lawn. A heavy silence descended upon them, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the engine cooling down.
Thomas turned to his passenger, a polite dismissal on his lips, but the words died in his throat. The back seat was empty.
Confusion washed over Thomas, followed by a wave of icy dread that seemed to claw its way up from the pit of his stomach. He distinctly remembered picking up the young man, the weight of his presence, the unsettling aura that had permeated the taxi. Yet there he was, staring at an empty back seat, the passenger's scent still lingering in the air like a phantom limb.
Section 2, The Vanishing Act, a passenger lost in thin air.
He quickly scanned the street, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. The fog swirled around the taxi, obscuring the view, but he could see no sign of the young man. Had he slipped out while Thomas was distracted by the eerie sight of the house? It seemed impossible, yet here he was, facing the impossible.
The passenger door stood slightly ajar, as if beckoning him to unravel the mystery. Thomas's hand trembled as he reached for the handle, his mind struggling to reconcile the impossible with the evidence before his eyes. How could a man simply vanish into thin air? The logical part of his brain screamed for a rational explanation, but a primal fear whispered of things beyond human comprehension. He jumped out of the car, his footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. The fog seemed to press in on him, suffocating, as if the very air was holding its breath.
He circled the taxi, his eyes frantically searching for any sign of movement, any trace of the vanished passenger.
The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of his own heart. Doubts gnawed at the edges of his mind.
Had he imagined the entire encounter? Was his mind playing tricks on him, the product of long, lonely hours on the road?
No, he thought. The scent of rain and something vaguely familiar still lingered in the air, a ghostly reminder of the passenger who was no more. With a growing sense of dread, Thomas approached the house, his hand hovering over the rusted gate.
Hello, is anyone there?
Only silence greeted him, a silence so profound it felt almost sentient, as if the house itself was holding its breath, its secrets locked tight within its decaying walls. He shone his flashlight into the overgrown yard, the beam cutting through the fog like a beacon in the darkness.
Shadows danced and swirled, taking on menacing shapes that sent shivers down his spine.
He knew he should leave, report the strange encounter to the authorities, but something held him there, a morbid curiosity, a need to understand the unexplainable. The following morning, Thomas found himself drawn to Millie's Diner, a haven of warmth and familiarity in a town that suddenly felt cold and alien.
The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon usually brought him a sense of comfort. But today, the familiar scents did little to soothe his frayed nerves.
The events of the previous night played on a loop in his mind, each replay amplifying the unsettling feeling that something was terribly wrong. He sat hunched over a cup of coffee, the steam rising from the mug doing little to penetrate the chill that had settled deep within him.
The diner's usual cheerful chatter seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the echo of the empty back seat and the ghostly scent of rain and something he couldn't quite place.
He ran a hand over his weary face, his reflection staring back at him from the chrome surface of the napkin dispenser, a stranger haunted by something he couldn't explain.
You alright, Tommy? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Maybe I have, Millie. You ever hear of someone disappearing into thin air?
Millie's brow furrowed further, her gaze fixed on him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine.
You mean like that boy who disappeared a few years back? Samuel Ward his name was, vanished without a trace. They say he was last seen not far from Willow Lane.
The name hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken dread. Thomas felt a cold hand grip his heart, squeezing the air from his lungs. Willow Lane. The name echoed in his mind, a chilling reminder of the eerie darkness that had seeped into his taxi the previous night. Could it be? Could his vanishing passenger be connected to the town's unsolved mystery? With a trembling hand, Thomas reached for his wallet, retrieving a faded newspaper clipping he had kept tucked away for years. The headline screamed, "Local boy vanishes, foul play suspected." The accompanying photo showed a young man, his features strikingly similar to those of his vanished passenger, the same haunted eyes, the same gaunt face, the same air of unspoken sorrow.
It's him, she whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. It's Samuel Ward.
The diner's usual cacophony faded into a distant hum, as Thomas and Millie stared at each other, united in their disbelief and the growing realization that they had stumbled upon something sinister, something that defied rational explanation. Section 5. The unanswered question, a ghostly plea for help? 1,000 questions swirled in Thomas's mind, each more unsettling than the last.
Why had Samuel Ward or his ghostly apparition chosen me, a humble taxi driver, to bear witness to his disappearance? Was it a desperate plea for help, a message from beyond the grave, or a cruel trick of fate designed to torment me?
He knew he couldn't ignore what he had seen, what he had felt. The encounter had shaken him to his core, leaving him with an unshakable feeling that he was somehow connected to Samuel Ward's fate. He owed it to the vanished soul, to himself, to unravel the mystery of 14 Willow Lane.
With a newfound determination, I pushed away my half-eaten breakfast, the taste of fear lingering on my tongue, a bitter reminder that some mysteries are best left buried.
Section 1. Revisiting the scene. A return to 14 Willow Lane. The old Victorian house loomed large against the overcast sky, its shadow stretching towards the road like a grasping hand. Thomas's taxi crawled back down Willow Lane, the engine protesting with each bump in the uneven road.
Even in the daylight, the house held a sinister aura, a palpable sense of unease that sent shivers down my spine. I had returned, compelled by a force I couldn't explain, drawn back to the scene of the vanishing passenger.
He parked a safe distance away, the engine ticking like a nervous heartbeat in the stillness. The fog had lifted, revealing the house in all its dilapidated glory. Peeling paint, boarded-up windows, and a front porch that sagged under the weight of neglect. It was a house that had surrendered to despair.
I took a deep breath, the crisp autumn air doing little to dispel the chill that had settled deep within me. I was stepping back into a mystery, one that seemed to twist and turn with every passing moment.
Section 2. The House of Shadows. Unmasking a gruesome past. As Thomas approached the house, his footsteps crunching on the gravel driveway, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The windows, like vacant eyes, seemed to follow his every move.
I recalled Millie's words from the diner, her voice a hushed whisper as she recounted the town's folklore. "That house," she had said, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. They say it's cursed, a place of sorrow and violence.
The house had a history, a dark and troubled past that was whispered about in hushed tones but never openly discussed. It had been the residence of Arthur Miller, a man known for his volatile temper and reclusive nature. Years ago, tragedy had struck the Miller household, plunging it into a scandal that had rocked the small town of Mayfield to its core. Arthur's wife, a woman known for her beauty and kind heart, had been found dead under mysterious circumstances. The investigation had been inconclusive, but rumors of foul play and whispers of Arthur's violent tendencies had lingered like a shroud over the house.
With a mix of trepidation and morbid curiosity, Thomas cautiously ascended the creaking steps of the porch. The wooden planks groaned under his weight, as if warning him to turn back.
He tried the doorknob, surprised to find it unlocked. It swung inward with a low groan, revealing a darkened interior thick with dust and the musty odor of decay.
He stepped inside, his senses assaulted by the weight of neglect and the lingering presence of a past he couldn't fully comprehend. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of his own breathing, and the distant creaking of the old house settling around him.
He moved cautiously, his footsteps barely disturbing the thick layer of dust that coated the floor. As he explored the darkened rooms, his hand brushed against something cold and metallic hidden beneath a loose floorboard.
He knelt down, his heart pounding in his chest, and pried open the concealed compartment.
Inside the compartment, nestled amongst cobwebs and fragments of what appeared to be old letters, lay a tarnished silver pocket watch. Engraved on the back were the initials S.W., Samuel Ward.
My blood ran cold. This was no coincidence. The missing boy had been here in this house of shadows, and his presence lingered like a ghostly echo.
As he examined the watch, his mind raced, piecing together fragments of information, rumors, and the unsettling events of the previous night. He recalled another name whispered in connection with the Miller house: Richard, Arthur's estranged brother. Richard, a shadowy figure who had disappeared from Mayfield shortly after his brother's wife was found dead. A man rumored to be just as volatile, just as capable of violence, as his deceased sibling. The discovery of Samuel Ward's pocket watch in the dilapidated Miller house sent shockwaves through the quiet town of Mayfield. The once quiet whispers of suspicion surrounding the house and its former occupants transformed into a cacophony of accusations and demands for justice.
The police, armed with Thomas's chilling account and the undeniable evidence found at 14 Willow Lane, finally had what they needed to reopen the case of the missing Samuel Ward. The investigation, once stalled and shrouded in the mists of time, roared back to life with a renewed sense of urgency.
The focus of their investigation quickly shifted to Richard Miller, the missing brother of the deceased Arthur Miller. Richard, a phantom from Mayfield's past, had long been a person of interest in the disappearance of Samuel Ward. Rumors of his volatile temper and his unsettling connection to his brother's troubled past painted a picture of a man capable of unspeakable acts.
The discovery of the pocket watch, a tangible link between me and the missing boy, only solidified their suspicions.
The trial of Richard Miller was a media spectacle, captivating the nation with its chilling details and the haunting question of whether a ghostly encounter had led to the unraveling of a decades-old mystery.
The prosecution, armed with a compelling narrative woven from circumstantial evidence, eyewitness accounts, and Thomas's chilling testimony, presented a convincing case against Richard. They argued that Richard, driven by a twisted sense of loyalty to his deceased brother and a deep-seated resentment towards the town that had shunned him, had lured Samuel Ward to the dilapidated house on Willow Lane, where he had met his untimely demise.
The defense, however, maintained Richard's innocence, painting him as a scapegoat, a convenient suspect in a town desperate for answers. They argued that the evidence against their client was circumstantial at best, a collection of coincidences and assumptions woven together to create a narrative that fit the town's suspicions. They pointed to the lack of a murder weapon, the absence of a clear motive, and the passage of time as insurmountable obstacles for the prosecution. The jury, faced with the daunting task of separating fact from fiction, deliberated for days, weighing the evidence, the testimonies, and the lingering doubts that clouded the case. In the end, they returned a guilty verdict, finding Richard Miller responsible for the death of Samuel Ward.
Justice, it seemed, had finally been served, but a sense of unease lingered in the air, a feeling that some questions would remain unanswered.
The mystery of Thomas's vanishing passenger, the eerie encounter that had set in motion the chain of events leading to Richard's arrest, remained a topic of debate and speculation. Was it a genuine ghostly encounter, a desperate plea for help from beyond the grave, or a figment of a tired mind, a trick of the fog and the shadows? There were no easy answers, no definitive explanations. The line between the natural and the supernatural had been blurred, leaving behind a residue of doubt and a lingering sense of wonder.